Welcome to I Talk to Ghosts, the podcast that is spooky music to your ears. I'm your haunted host, Jennifer, a spirit medium and a teller of ghost stories. Tonight, dear listener, I'm going to be sharing with you ghost stories that include the theme of music in some way. I always appreciate a good theme and one that you maybe haven't heard a lot of stories about. So let me know what you think. I also have a new in-studio spirit reading for you this evening, as well as I plan on wandering over to my seance table for a message from the spirits that could be specifically for you. So join me there later. But first, do you hear the music? The haunting melodies are playing for you right now. My grandmother owns a cabin on a lake in northern Michigan that I visit every year with all of my cousins. There are 8 other houses in our community, and each one has been in that family for generations. Long story short, the other kids from the other 8 houses have been my best friends since I was born. During the summers, at night, we all met at the crossroads to play flashlight games. The summer I was 14, the strangest thing happened. I'm around the older side of the group. There's a girl who is a year older than me, but the majority of the kids were younger. The youngest, that specific summer, was 8 years old. We made an emergency code word in case one of them got too scared. They'd call it out, and we'd stop the game no matter what and find them. I vividly remember looking at my watch. It was 11:23 p.m., nearly pitch black, and we were playing a game called Sardines. We had just started a new game, so there was only one person hiding, and the rest of us were wandering around searching for them, when we heard ice cream truck music. Our community is 7 miles from the nearest town, and we know no one owns an ice cream truck anywhere near us. Why would they? Our community is private, and it has a mile-long driveway, so there would be no point in selling to us, and there were hardly any other families around for miles. What I'm saying is, there's no reason why a person would be driving an ice cream truck around in the middle of the day, let alone in the middle of the night. Anyway, we heard the ice cream truck music floating over the trees, and the oldest girl and I looked at each other and instantly used our emergency word, calling all the kids back to the crossroads. We did a head count, and everyone was there. We listened to the music gradually get closer and louder, and truth be told, we were all terrified. It went on for about a minute, but it seemed a lot longer. Suddenly, it stopped, and the woods around us were dead silent. Usually, you can hear animals or crickets in the trees, but there was nothing. We called it quits after that. The oldest girl and I walked all of our friends home, just to make sure, because they were pretty freaked out. The next night, we heard it again at the exact same time, 11:23 p.m. We called everyone back to us again, and the music got louder and stopped about a minute after it started. We haven't heard it since. That was about 5 years ago, but it still freaks me out to this day, and the kids who we were playing with still remember it. One of them, she's 15 now, brought it up last summer, and it still scares her too. Over 20 years ago, as a young teenager, my friends and I would sneak out in the middle of the night and toilet paper other people's houses. One night, as a shortcut, we decided to walk through the cemetery. More than halfway through it, we heard something, and we all stopped. There were 4 or 5 of us in the group, and we recognized that we were hearing the happy birthday song. It wasn't very loud. I couldn't tell you what instrument was playing the song, but it sounded like it was being played on a record player, because partway through the song, the tempo slowed down and stopped before the song was finished. We argued a little bit about where the sound was coming from because we couldn't tell which direction it was coming from, but it was definitely from somewhere in the cemetery. As far as we could tell, there was no one there but us. It was a very strange thing to happen in the middle of the night, in the middle of a cemetery. We got out of there pretty quick. After that experience, we went back again on another night to explore or figure out where the song had come from, and we didn't notice anything unusual. There was nothing else near the cemetery to make the music. The grounds were surrounded by empty cotton fields for hundreds of yards in every direction. We could never agree where the music had been coming from, but we could agree that we all had heard it. Several months ago, I purchased a Regina disc music box from a woman in Sacramento, California. If you aren't familiar with these music boxes, picture a wooden record player, but inside, it uses a punched metal disc and a beautifully designed brass mechanism to recreate music as the metal disc turns. These are beautiful antiques. The music box I had purchased from the woman had been in her family for many years, and her great aunt was the original owner. The woman never had any children, so she had no family members to pass it down to. After I purchased it and brought it home, my 5-year-old granddaughter Kaylee became totally entranced by it. I showed her how it worked so she could play the discs and wind the music box up herself. I kept the music box near our main staircase. Whenever Kaylee spent the night at my home, she would walk by the music box on the way up to her room. We started noticing that every time Kaylee walked by, the box would start playing on its own for about 10 seconds. This would always be when the stop lever was on, or after the music box had run down the crank and stopped playing. I took the box to be serviced, and the technician could find no reason why the box was going on and off whenever Kaylee walked by. It would not play when my husband and I walked by, just Kaylee. We thought that maybe the vibration of her walking near the box might be setting off the mechanism, but it would not explain why we didn't cause the box to play. After several weeks of this activity, Kaylee came downstairs one morning and told us, "I saw the grandmother ghost last night, and she told me she is happy I listened to her music box." We then asked her to describe the grandmother ghost, which she did. I sent an email to the woman I purchased the music box from, and she said that the description Kaylee provided sounded like her great aunt, the original owner of the music box. She also said her aunt loved children and would have been thrilled that Kaylee was so entranced by the music box. The night before Mother's Day, Kaylee asked if she could write the grandmother ghost a card. She dictated a short note and signed her name, Love, Kaylee. After Mother's Day, we noticed that the music box didn't play spontaneously as much anymore. However, every once in a while, it starts playing when Kaylee walks up the stairs. Interestingly, it never starts playing when she's walking down the stairs. We firmly believe that the original owner of the music box had followed us home. Let's try something new. You probably know my medium work by now, but did you know I also love to provide tarot readings as well? I absolutely love the messages the cards can offer of affirmation, inspiration, and guidance. If you are feeling called to see what messages are waiting for you, visit italktoghosts.com to book a reading with me. I can't wait to meet you. Hello and welcome back to I Talk to Ghosts. My guest this evening is Jessica. Jessica, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure to have you here. We're going to mix this up a bit and do your personal ghost story first before we head into your medium reading. So, do you have a personal experience or two that you'd like to share?
I have a few.
Listener ghost story.
So one specifically that comes to mind was actually in a previous house of mine, and my husband and I were out back with some friends having a bonfire, and my child was 8, I think at the time, playing video games in his room. You know, we can see the light on, and all of a sudden we see this super tall shadow just go across the windows in his room. And we look at each other and we're like, both just like perplexed. And so I go in and I'm like, what are you doing? Are you jumping on your bed? Because his bed was really low. His dad had built it. It was almost on the floor, but there was actually a frame. And he's like, what do you mean? Playing video games? And I was like, are you jumping around? He's like, no. He was just like, what? And so confused. But then we talked about it after, and there is no possible way that he could have made that shadow, and there was no one else at the house. And that same house, a friend and I were in the room watching a movie, and we hear some movement in the living room, and I'm yelling for my roommate, you know, blah blah blah, just calling her name, and nothing. So I go out there and she's not home. So I come back in, we're both just like, that's weird. And a couple minutes later, same thing, hear the faucet in the bathroom going off. So I'm yelling again her name, nothing. So I sent my friend out there, and there was no one in the house. And there's a lot of them. Then one more that comes to mind at a different house, actually. I'd gone to the grocery store. I walk in and I hear, hey. I thought it was my son. And I'm like, hey. And I'm looking around and there's no one there. And so I set the groceries down and I text him and I was like, well, what's up? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm playing video games. I'm like, were you just... He's like, no, I've been in my room all day. But I heard that. I heard the hey enough to like acknowledge it and talk back to it. And it was just the weirdest thing. And we used to hear knocks on the walls, knocks on my bedroom door in that house. They were pretty interesting experiences.
Wow. So going back to your first experience, seeing the shadow across the window, the really tall shadow, did you discuss with your son whether or not he felt something different or anything like that in his room at the time that it happened?
I didn't because he was still fairly young. Like I said, I want to say he was 8-ish, but I didn't want to plant that seed, impressionable mind. So actually the same thing happened because he'd experienced some things in that next house where I heard that voice. And he was like, "Are you knocking on the wall?" Because there was a bathroom in between the rooms. And I was like, "No, it's probably just an old house." And he insisted it was knocking, and he brought up multiple times in that house. But I didn't want it on his radar. I just didn't want him to get carried away with it with his age. But there were definitely a handful of experiences in that house specifically where he experienced them as well. So
okay, yeah, you're a good mom for not putting that in his head, right? And it's a completely different scenario when your child comes to you and is like, "Hey, I think there's something going on." There's so many stories that I hear where parents are like, "It's all in your head," and they totally dismiss it, leaving it to the kid to deal with. But it really sounds that like you had conversations around it and tried to keep it as comforting as possible.
We've discussed them since, and he still stands by everything that was said back then. And I mean, I still don't have an explanation, so I'm not saying too much different, but I've acknowledged them since. So
yeah, and it sounds like there was a bit of like mimic activity going on as well.
Actually, that exact thing. My last house, I have a thing. I like to move, and my last house, I heard hello in the bedroom once, but that was the only thing I ever heard, and it's been a year and a half since anything.
I'm really glad that things have seemed to have quieted down for you a bit.
Yes, let's hope they stay that way. But they were very vivid. There was no mistaking them, and there was no other explanation. So
yeah, I've had experiences myself with knocking in my current house. Everything from like the 3 knocks to the very distinct. That is not the house settling, and thankfully that has dampened since I've started mediumship. We were a little worried that things would ramp up and become more energetic, but it seems it's actually the exact opposite. My mediumship is kind of claiming my space and cleansing the energy and all that. So I'm happy to report that.
Okay, good. Good.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. I always find it so fascinating how common it is. I don't screen people to see if they have stories first before they come on the show. So for me to give a random reading to everyone, more often than not, someone has a story. And the variety of stories are also very intriguing. So yeah, it's really great to just share these things and realize how kind of more normal it is than we think.
Definitely.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's get to your reading, Jessica. I am very excited to open up the space for you and see who comes in. There feels like there's a lot of laughter in your family and creativity. Do you find that to be true?
At one point, yes.
Yeah. There's a woman coming in. There's actually 2 women. It feels like they're together. It feels more like mother, grandmother energy, and perhaps aunt energy. Does this make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
And your aunt that's coming in, she's the one, she seems very vibrant and is bringing the laughter.
Very much so, yes.
Let's focus on this aunt. It feels like when she comes in, it's almost like a little bit of a whirlwind. She's coming in with this energy of like, and it's almost like she has bags of things with her. Like she's bringing in all this energy and like things to do. And all of a sudden the energy is distracted in the room and you're turned around in a good way. And then all of a sudden it's, hey, we're doing this thing. And everything else that came before that is a little bit forgotten. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, when you said whirlwind, I was like 1,000%. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because she's like, wow. And it's almost like she's bringing her life with her. It's her energy and her interests and the topics of conversation. And it's like, all right, we're coming in and we're doing this. It feels like there's a lot of energy surrounding the kitchen as well. I don't know if you guys did things around the table a lot.
Their kitchen was like the main, that's where everybody was at all times. And I mean, that was the hangout spot in their house.
Okay. Did she have a good fashion sense too? She's kind of showing me her shoes a little bit or something. Like she just had this distinct way of being her.
Yeah, she was just cute, tiny little thing. Just always, great mood, super vibrant, just always well dressed. And she was great.
Yeah, yeah. Let me see what else she has to say. She wants to give you a big hug. I know that sounds a little cliche, but that's just coming through like, oh my God, let me give you this big hug and let you know that everything is okay. It feels like she just has this ability to manifest her life and affect the world around her. Is that just part of her personality?
Yeah, she was great heart. Absolutely. Everyone around her, people would just flock to her because she was just great.
I'm seeing an image of more of a older type car. It seems kind of interesting. As I'm trying to examine this vibe, it feels like the 50s was important to her. I don't know her age range, but it almost feels like she idealizes it.
She would have been teens in the 50s.
Okay.
So,
okay. Just to explain my process a little bit, when I get an image of something like, say, a vintage car, and then it's like, I don't know that exact connection is the feedback I'm getting. So then I'll go back and be like, okay, what's the emotion behind this? And this feeling of this was fundamental to me. This kind of helped form who I am, and I kept that going forward. But from here, is there anyone specifically you were hoping to hear from? And your aunt's like, of course it was me.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I don't know, possibly my mother, my stepfather who passed. Those would be the big ones, other than my aunt, obviously.
Is your aunt connected to your mom? Was this her sister?
Yes.
Okay. That makes sense with my first comment of I've got two women, mother energy, One thing I do want to add in while I was opening the space for the reading and reaching out and seeing who was out there, I was like, I felt someone come close, and I'm like, well, who are you? How are you doing? What do you want to say? And they had this really dry sense of humor, and they were like, well, I'm dead.
Wow. So it was not long after my mother had passed away, and my husband and I were at a family reunion, and it was the side of the family I didn't really know anyone, and there's some other things that had taken place, and everybody kept asking, like, how are you doing? Are you better? And it was just a very long day, and I was kind of like worn down, and we were actually getting ready to leave. I was like, we need to go. Like, I can't do this anymore. And this one gentleman I'd never met before comes up to my husband and I and says, oh, I knew your mom. Like, how's she doing? And I didn't mean it to sound this insensitive, but I said, well, she's dead, so she's good. And it just came out. Like, I didn't even, and my husband looked at me and I was like, and he still like jabs at me now for that, like 9 years later. He's like, I cannot believe you said that. And I was like, well, I didn't even it just came out. It was just a really long day and I was frustrated and I don't know who this person was. So yeah.
Yeah. I think she heard it, and it's okay because it made me laugh. The feeling that came behind it made me laugh, and I'm like, wow, what is this? So yeah, I think she was definitely there's a great example of how they're still with us and can relay things back to us that had happened.
I still feel bad for that poor guy that I was talking to.
Well, hopefully he can look back on it now and laugh a little bit about that is very dry. And sure, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but yeah.
So
Well,
yes, what that message definitely makes sense.
Okay. Oh my gosh, your mom really wants to come in with the advice, but it's like, hey, I want to know that you are her mom. Let's share things about you. Was she not one to put the focus on herself?
No, not at all.
Yeah. I'm getting that energy from her where she just wants to talk about you, and I'm like, "Hey, well what about you, mom?" And she's like, "I don't no focus on me. But no, I want to hear things." She is not what I would call a sharer. I feel like there is a side of her, if she didn't talk about it, it wasn't real in a way. Does that make sense?
I can most certainly relate that to some things, yes.
Yeah, where she's just it's almost like she's turning sideways, and it's like, no, don't look at this part of me, because then I'll have to acknowledge it too. And it feels very vulnerable, so I want to be gentle with it. Okay. Was she really good at relating to, did she love animals?
Yes.
She's like, I love dogs and animals, and this was her emotional outlet where she could express herself and give freely. It felt safe for her and also necessary, because the smaller things in life need love, right? It's almost like the smaller the thing, the bigger the love with her. And she's sharing that with me. She's sharing that with the clarity she has now. She wishes she had more confidence in herself. And she wants to pass this on to you, that you should be confident about moving through life. And if you're not, really just kind of examine, what do I need in order to support myself and feel more confident? Do you have twins?
No, but almost. They're Irish twins. I don't know, whatever they call it, because they're very close in age.
Okay. Because she's like, you have your hands full. And I think there's this outpouring of advice of take care of yourself, and yeah, it's really heavy right now, but support yourself through it, and it's all worth it. It's all very worth it. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Because she just, it really feels like she wasn't the best communicator in life, and it was hard to have these conversations with her. Like, was she a little guarded or just not available?
Yes. In later years, yes, very much little communication, very guarded, and yes.
Yeah. And this is something she wants to acknowledge, that it was just so hard for her, and hopefully you can see that, we're all flawed human beings trying our best, or, stumbling, and she wishes that she was able to have that wide open heart and to be able to be there for you. And so just take that as an acknowledgement and a little bit of an apology with things.
That certainly resonates, trust me.
Okay, great. And she's also still being very guarded about the details of things, so I'm just going to respect that. And the other thing she wants to offer is, your young childhood feels like there's so much nostalgia there. And if you can, when you think of things, think of that. Oh, what is this feeling? When she was older, she was very scared that you would have lost all of that. It feels very shaky and fragile to me from her as she thinks about it. This might seem really random, but as I was talking about that, was there ever an incident with like a flat tire or something like that? Something with the car?
It was one of the last times we spoke, and I was driving and I was talking to her on the phone, and I got into a car accident, and I just screamed on the phone because I got into an accident, and the phone flew, and then I obviously didn't get back to her for quite some time because dealing with other things. But I can only imagine in hindsight, as a mother, how terrifying that must have been.
Yeah. Because as I was tapping into that shaky energy, and I'm telling you about her uncertainty with all of it, she's like, don't forget about the car. And like, she didn't know if it was, a flat tire, or it felt like there was something wrong with the vehicle. And she's just bringing that in.
That had to have been traumatizing as a mother for sure. I wasn't thinking clearly at the time.
This can be a PSA for anyone who happens to.
Yes.
But you had a lot going on in those moments, and it's like at that point, yes, you do have to take care of you. But yes, let's close that loop later when we can. Your stepdad, would you describe him as a gentle man? Gentle soul? He's coming in, and he feels like a really great support system for your mom. I see him holding her arm, really kind of guiding her, trying to be there for her. With him, I'm actually seeing flowers. Did he bring her flowers a lot? That
is probable. But also, unfortunately, they've been gone for so long. If there was, I don't remember. I'm so sorry.
No, please don't apologize. That's my opportunity to go back and say, hey, I delivered that. Give me something else. What else you got? Christmas feels important with him.
Yes. Christmas was always a big deal in our house. There was a time when we were younger where my mom accidentally locked him out, and he slept in his car all night. So he was there for like Christmas Day. It was just this saddest / cutest thing ever.
Oh my goodness. That is definitely a Christmas story. And your aunt kind of wants to pipe in too a little bit that it got rowdy. Think Christmas could get rowdy.
Christmas could get rowdy. And my aunt was a huge advocate. Like, she loved Christmas more than anything. Like, huge fan of Christmas. So
yes. Yeah. It's like, if we're going to talk about Christmas, she's like, I'm showing up for this because I don't want to fade into the background here. She's like, someone say Christmas.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
And the Christmas music, would she sing along to that?
She did a lot of very entertaining things.
Mistletoe.
She was a trip for sure.
Okay, let me see. With your stepdad, it feels like he's got a little bit of that quiet energy too going on. When you picture your stepdad, you know how we all have those iconic memories of things. I see him kind of relaxing, hanging out, watching the game or something like that, like watching the TV. Just kind of chilling.
Yep.
And did he have readers? I got a flash visual of a man kind of looking up from the magazine or the TV guide and kind of like looking over the glasses, kind of talking to you before going back to like doing what they were doing.
That actually makes me think grandfather, because he was always like in that recliner, always reading the paper, and he would always do that. Just look over the paper. Yep.
Okay. Here we are with that classic case of spirits blending into each other again. Well, let me shift to grandfather a little bit, just because I want to give everyone a little bit of space. He feels like a generous man who it was important to him to give a bit of himself with people. That was his way of expressing his love through action or attention. It feels like this was part of his compass, where it's like, it is important that you contribute, whether it's your neighbor or the community group or whatever group he was in, or a family. He wanted to be there, and it felt important for him to be not only giving, but also recognized as a source of support for others. It feels like in his younger life, perhaps he had to make do with some things, and the older he got, the message is, if you have something, try to share it.
So he had a rougher younger life, from what I understand.
Yeah.
And then with the whole giving thing, so he played Santa at malls for like 25 years. That was his thing. Like, he loved it. He loved the joy it brought to people. It was a huge deal. And then in his older years, he found out he had Parkinson's, and it was just, obviously it's detrimental to anyone, obviously, but yeah, he took it really hard, and it was a huge just blow to him. And because he knew he wasn't going to be able to do the things he loved doing anymore. So yeah,
he is saying that his mind was always sharp, and that kind of contribute to that loss for him was, gosh, my brain just was coherent and always wanted to keep going. And it feels like he loved knowledge, that he did love to read, and he loved to just know things. And he's just kind of sharing that part of himself as well. He's bringing up photography. Was he the one who always had a camera, or a lot of pictures were coming from him? It felt important to document.
Between he and my grandmother, there are so many pictures. I mean, when all the kids were young, when they were young, and I mean, you name it, but there's...
Yeah. Just that sense of family history and nostalgia. It's super important. And he is really glad to feel that's all that spirit carry on through you, and just wants to give that to you. If I could just put it in your heart. He's very warm and emotionally supportive in that way of, oh my gosh, childhood is so important. The memories are so important. Just hold on to it as long as you can, because it just seems to go by so quick.
I can agree with that for sure.
Yeah. Okay. I do have a couple messages that I wrote down for you that I would love to share. And some of it echoes some of it that was coming in earlier. Hang in there with any kind of extra responsibility that you may be experiencing right now. It will pay off. So just support yourself through it, and it's worth it. It is worth it, whatever you're going through. And everyone is just so proud of you. And they just want to express that so much. And they want to encourage you. You're going to see new growth, potential, opportunities open up. And just don't feel... I mean, you're going to feel what you feel. If things feel really heavy, some of it is holding on to the worry a little bit. So if it could help a little bit to just kind of let go and flow with it, and remember to have the fun and to play, because we can't be on and heavy and serious all the time. And it can be really crushing to have that extra responsibility going on. But at the same time, it's all the more important to take that breath and have those silly little moments. Does that resonate for you right now?
Yes, I am a worrier much more as of recent than normal. So, yes, I need to cut that out.
Yeah. I often say we worry because we care. And it's just, if we can shift it back into caring mode and pouring love into it, and also some of that silliness and joy, because if we can't see that part, what are we worrying for? We want to enjoy what we're protecting, right? What we're caring for. So if you can just, whenever it really starts to feel heavy, maybe that can be a little bit of a signal for you to be like, all right, let's shake this off a little bit and do something really, really silly in the moment, and lighten, just try and lighten your soul a little bit. And I think that they just want to give you all their love and support in all the variety of ways that they come together for you, and celebrate all those moments, and just, give you all that love.
I can definitely do that, work on that.
Well, thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you for meeting with me. Your family sounds amazing and has so much variety going on. And there's a lot of love and different layers of emotional support and experiences in there. And they're definitely always connected to you. And sometimes it's just nice to hear. So I want to say it, like, they are with you, and they love you very much, and they can still witness everything you're doing and share that with you too.
I really, really appreciate you more than you know. Thank you so, so much.
You are so welcome. Would you like a free spirit reading with me and record your reading for the podcast? Sign up for your chance to be selected by visiting italktoghosts.com/guest. And as an added bonus, if you don't want to leave your reading up to chance, I'll let you in on a secret. There's a discount offer to book a private session with me, so you can book a date and time for certain. Visit italktoghosts.com/guest for more details. Hello and welcome back to I Talk to Ghosts. I have a message from the spirits tonight for someone listening to the podcast, so thank you for joining me here at my seance table. Tonight, as I call a spirit close, I'm going to be working with green moonstone. Green moonstone is wonderful to help support the heart chakra. It helps heal rifts in relationships. And it's also considered a prosperity stone to help attract luck and wealth and prosperity. And it's wonderful for good luck as well. I'm going to open the space, call a spirit close. This feels like female cousin energy. It's summertime now, and the summer always reminds you of her. So she's been on your mind a little bit. Your cousin had a bit of a wild heart about her. She was very much into music, always wearing a band t-shirt. You loved her dearly, but there was a part of you that felt like, gosh, what is she gonna do next? And am I gonna like it? She had a bit of a trickster side to her. You just weren't quite sure. Let's just call her unpredictable. You two would often sneak away during the family gatherings to get into your own kind of teenage mischief. It feels like there were woods around you, I see everything from kind of sitting in the woods, tossing rocks, joking around. I have a summer memory that she's sharing of you two riding bikes over a bridge, just having a little summer adventure. Your cousin is kind of sharing with me that she was a little envious of you, and that you made life look a little easy in a way that she could never figure out. Her message for you tonight is, yes, she was envious of you and how you made life seem easy and smooth. And you were envious of her for having more of a adventurous heart and seeming to not be afraid of anything and didn't mind a risk or two. What she wants to say is that just try not to overthink things a little bit and get in touch with that adventurous side of yourself. If there's something that you're longing to do and it feels like a risk to you, but really it's just new and unknown, support yourself through that. And whatever you can do to draw in that carefree, fiery passion of just, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna find out what it looks like. Caution to the wind a little bit as far as giving up the talking yourself out of it and overthinking it and staying safe. She's telling you to not play small. So have a little fun this summer, and if there's anything you can do to show yourself in small ways that trying new things or taking small, what you would consider a risk when really it's just something new, do little exercises, do little explorations of that, and it'll help your brain realize that trying something new, it may seem like a scary thought, but the actual doing is lovely and wonderful and worth it. Support yourself and do the things that your heart beats faster for. I think I'm going to leave it at that. So if this message connects for you, please let me know because I would love to hear. Thank you. Are you enjoying your spooky visit? Please support the podcast by liking, sharing, and subscribing. The ghosts may be talkative, but they are lousy at marketing, so every click helps. Tell your friends and please leave a kind review so that others may join us. The spirits and I thank you. And with that, dear listener, we've reached the end of this episode of I Talk to Ghosts. I hope you've enjoyed the spirit work that I shared with you this evening. If you're feeling called to have a medium reading with me, please reach out because I would love to meet you. I also hope that you enjoyed the hauntingly musical ghost stories I shared with you this evening. Have you ever had an encounter with a ghost that involved music in some way? I would really love to hear your story, so please reach out if you do. In the meantime, wherever you wander off to in this world or the next, just remember, come back and visit with me. Have a lovely evening and good night.